Hello again. So today I want to talk to you about 3-point perspective. So we've covered 1 and 2. We know that 1-point perspective is when you're looking at an object straight on and you're seeing that front face. 2-point perspective is when you're looking at it from the side. You slightly rotate that cube so you're looking at it from the corner. So you're seeing those two sides now receding back into space. So then what is 3-point perspective? Now, I want to go back to, Remember our drawings we talked about a while ago about this is you, this is the ground. Well, let's make the ground a little straighter. This is the ground that you're standing on, and this is our eye level because this is the height of our actual eyeballs to the ground. And then line of sight is where we're looking. So line of sight has to do with, are we looking straight ahead? Are we looking up or are we looking down, right? This is our line of sight. And this is what is going to be the difference between 1, 2-point, and then 3-point perspective. So let's draw you again. One 1-point and 2-point perspective is when this is you standing here, here's your eye level. In 1 and 2-point perspective, your line of sight is always straight ahead. Always, always. That is what 1-point and 2 perspective are. You're looking straight ahead. You're not looking up or down. When we get into 3-point perspective is when you're standing here. Here's the ground. Here's our eye level. And 3-point, you are looking up or you are looking down. Your line of sight. So this is actually where, if we were looking up, your nose would be here, your eyes are here, you're looking up this way. So your head actually tilts up and down when you're looking up or down. Straight ahead, you're always looking directly in front of you. And so if we were to look back at, some of the stuff that we drew earlier, we have our picture plane, we have our horizon line. Let's do 2-point here. And we know our horizon line's in the middle of the page. We have our vanishing points off the page, the 2 of them here. If we were to draw our objects, so let's draw, some cubes in here. And then we're going to do one above the horizon line. All right, and then we're going to do one below the horizon line. What you may be asking yourself is, well, these are above and below. Doesn't that mean we're looking up or down? And the answer is no, and I've briefly mentioned this before. Your line of sight is right here and directly in the middle of the page on the horizon line. So what this means is you're looking directly at this object in the middle, but any of these objects now above or below or to the sides, we're seeing in our peripheral. We're not actually looking directly at them. We're using our peripheral vision to look at these objects. And the reason we know this is all these sides, remember that rule I told you, all the sides in 1 and 2-point perspective are always going to be vertical. This never changes. The time this changes is when we get to 3-point perspective. And what's going to happen is when we draw our picture plane, it's going to change too. Remember I told you your horizon line is always going to be in the middle of the picture? Well, this is the time when it's not. It would not be in the middle of your picture plane, because imagine you're looking up here, right? If you're looking up, then that horizon line's moved because you're not looking at it. It's below you. So it would be off the page. It would be below the page or above the page if you were looking down. So that's one big change already. So now the question is, if it's 3 points, where do the vanishing points go? Where do the VPs go, right? Because there's got to be 3 points here. So when we're talking about 1 and 2 points, we know the rule is we have our horizon line, and here's 2-point perspective, 1-point perspective in the middle. Our vanishing points are always on the horizon line. Always, always. 1 and 2-point perspective. This is how it works. Now, 3-point. Do my point. In 3-point perspective, we are going to have our horizon line, and we're going to start with, just like 2-point perspective, we're going to have 2 points off to the side, to left and right, but the 3rd point is what's going to make it look like we're looking up and down. So it starts off just like 2-point, but the 3rd point will either be above or below the horizon line. So if it will be above if we're looking up, and it'll be below if we're looking down. Okay, so that's a 3-point. So essentially this is 2-point perspective plus another point. So all those other rules we talked about in 2-point perspective are going to be essentially the same. What the one that's going to change is where these vertical lines are no longer going to be exactly vertical. So if we were to go over here, let's draw our new picture plane. So let's say we're looking up. We're looking up at an object. We're going to see the bottom of it. This is our picture plane. We're in 3-point perspective. Because our head is literally turned upwards, our horizon line, or our eye level, is down here underneath the picture plane. So our horizon line, and there's our eye level. So just like 2-point perspective, we're going to start with 2 points, because these are going to help figure out the vanishing points for the sides of the object. But the 3rd point is going to be above, because we're looking up, so the 3rd point will be above. Now, where it is going to be pretty far off. Now, remember when I talked about 1 and 2 point, or when I talked about 2-point, and I said usually 2-point perspective, the dots are pretty far off the page. They're usually, I mean, this is a little close. They'd be pretty far away. When we're talking about our 3rd point, it's going to be even farther away. So we've got our 2 points here, and this is our 3rd point all the way up here. And this is going to help us figure out the sides of the boxes. So if I was to make a cube in 3-point perspective. Now you remember 1-point perspective, we start with the front face of an object. 2-point perspective, we start with a line. 3-point perspective, we're going to start with the corner that is closest to us. So we start with a dot. So that's the corner. Now I want to draw the bottom. And I'm going to start this off just like I'm doing 2-point perspective. I'm going to draw the bottom of my object going to my vanishing points. I'll figure out there. And let's say it goes here. So we have figured out the bottom of our object. Now the question is, where are our sides? Where do they go? Because they're no longer, if this was 2-point, they would just be perfectly vertical. That would be easy to figure out. You just make a perfectly vertical line. But this is not 2-point perspective. These sides are now going to go back to our 3rd vanishing point. So they are going to converge backwards to the vanishing point and look like they're getting smaller. So if we make this line here, and one here, oop, that went a little off, and then one here. So that's roughly our 3 sides. And so they're getting narrower as they go farther away from us. We're looking upwards. And then we can figure out the top by using our 2 points, just like we would if this was 2-point perspective. So kind of arbitrarily figuring out how high this is and connecting those points. So we are now looking upwards at this cube. So it's 2-point perspective, except our horizon line's no longer in the middle of the page. It's either above or below. So if I was going to draw something we were looking down at, let me do this over. I'll do this again down here so we can see how it works. I'm going to use this as my same horizon line. Since we're looking downwards, the horizon line is going to be above the page because this is our eye level, or where our eyes are looking downwards, but the height of our eyes from the ground is still up here. So if I was going to draw a cube below, we're going to start with a point. This is the point that is closest to us. You can see it now here that this is the one that actually looks like it's closest to us. So this is the point closest to us. And then we're going to draw the top of this because we're looking downwards. So that means we're only seeing the top, or not only, we're going to see a lot of the top of it. So let us start with our 2 points to figure out where the sides of the top are. So we have the top of our object. Now our third point is going to be somewhere down here, and this is, you're doing this arbitrarily, essentially. You're just kind of figuring what would look best. If you do it too close, your object will look super distorted. The closer it is, the more drastic the perspective will look. So if I did it really, really close, the sides of the box would look like this, which I could do that. It depends how dramatic we want to make it look. But for something a little bit more natural looking, you'd probably put it far away, and it'd be a little bit more like this. Oops. Like that. And then we can figure out the bottom using our normal 2-point vanishing points. And there we go. We have an object in 3-point. So remember, the sides are no longer vertical and parallel. The sides are now converging downwards. The other important thing to know is this point, your third point, is always going to be directly in the center of your page. So if you divide your page in two, if you want to find it, you take your where your page is, divide it in two, and you draw a line basically straight upwards or straight downwards, and that's where the center is going to be. So it's never going to be off to the sides. It's always going to be directly in the center of your page here. So that's just another important thing to remember. So essentially, 3-point perspective is 2-point perspective plus looking up or down. So it's the same rules as 2-point. We're just looking up or down, and that changes how the sides will look, where they're going to converge to. So, 3-point isn't super common. We're humans. We're usually kind of looking straight forward. It depends. Like if maybe you're drawing objects on your desk, if you were sitting up and looking downwards at them, you would use it. But typically, we humans do kind of think in 1- and 2-point perspective. The most common examples of drawings of 3-point perspective are buildings. That's kind of the easiest example to do. So let's imagine we were standing on the top of some buildings in a city. Like we're in New York City. This is usually where this type of perspective is used, and it can give the illusion that we are standing on top of buildings and looking downwards. And so you can imagine like Batman sitting all moody right here with his cape kind of blowing out. You can picture these type of scenes. This is where we usually have this 3-point perspective, because all these lines converging, because we're looking downwards, that means all these lines are converging downwards to some point below. You can imagine this is what 3-point perspective is used. The other usual time is if we were to use another building, for example. If you were in the city again, and let's say you're standing on the ground and you're looking upwards at a building, what you see is something like this. You're looking up at a skyscraper, it looks like that, where it looks like it's receding far away. And this is the best way you can really figure out perspective. Go stand under a tall building and look upwards, and you will see these lines look like they're receding away to one small point that is far up here. All right, and those are the most common examples we use 3-point perspective for.